Hi, welcome to another product walkthrough video of RightsWATCH. Let us now see how easy it is for a sysadmin to delegate access to the admin interface so that those users that are delegated the access can only see and do and set up information and settings that relate to their own projects or their own departments. In this case, John Doe, which is a sysadmin, is creating a new scope inside the general admin interface of RightsWatch, and now is delegating control of that very same reality that relates to Project X, an M&A project, for example, to a particular group of users in a group on Active Directory. So Project X admin is a group set up on Active Directory, and the users inside this Project X admin group will have segregated access to the admin interface. They will only be able to see, do what relates to Project X on the admin interface of RightsWatch. If we now change to Paul Brown being a user or inside that Project X admin groups, what he can see is much less than John Doe could see on the admin interface. What he can see is only to create information, in this case, the levels of how to classify information inside the scope Project X. Let us now create a scope called operations. Let us see how easy it is for him, in this case at Paul Brown, which is a project manager inside that particular project, to define what levels of classification, define the tooltips that he wants users inside that project to see. He can have these tooltips in English or in any other language that he wants his users to have access to. So full localization of RightsWatch is ever present. If you want to set up different watermarks than the standard corporate watermarks to be applied for those particular levels of classification, you can do so. In this case, Paul Brown is choosing to apply dynamic watermark as in the forms of headers, footers, and even watermarks onto those Words, Excels, and PowerPoints, and even emails whenever someone chooses to apply a classification of operation to a particular file. Now, dynamic watermarking means that you can choose what elements of the users and the files are being automatically added to the files in itself. You can set up elements or criteria to be added as a watermark that relates to, for example, who the user is, what time and date, what is the host name, what is the IP address, etc., etc. Now, creating a new level, in this case management, also copy and pasting that information into the tooltips now means that users that have access to that scope, and we haven't got there, will see two levels on how to classify information, and they will see the appropriate tooltips. So what Paul Brown has done is create the two levels under the scope of Project X. This is the first step for a project manager to start setting up his own reality, his own environment. The second step is to go to roles, and roles he can only see the ones that he is entitled to see, the ones that relate to his particular project. So now he's creating a new one. He's creating a role called Project X. You can create, or Paul Brown could have created, as many roles as he wanted to be to serve the reality, to better address his needs. But creating one, Project X, now Paul is defining the RMS template and customizing the RMS template so that he can decide what users will and will not be able to do when handling information that is classified as operations or as management inside that particular project. This means that according to a role-based access control of RightsWatch, users will have access and usage restrictions applied and enforced whenever they are handling from a consumption or production standpoint information that has been classified with operations or management related. Clicking sync means that the appropriate settings will be populated on the different server components that integrate your infrastructure. When Paul clicks on credentials, he can then place users inside those roles. So now he's searching for Robert in Active Directory. Robert Miller is found it, and now he's going to edit Robert, and the only thing he can do is place Robert inside the roles that he has created for him. He cannot edit anything else that goes beyond and outside the scope of Project X, which is the reality that him as project management should be. So now Robert Miller is inside two roles, project management and project X. Project management because it was defined by the corporate sysadmin, project X that was defined by Paul Brown in this case. Now, Paul can also search for groups of users inside Active Directory. So instead of searching on a user by user base, he will be searching by managers. So every group, every user inside the group managers will now be placed in the role Project X. This type of segregated access is interesting for project managers or departmental heads and can also be granted as a read-only capability.